Every few months, another headline appears. Scientists may have reversed aging, a breakthrough in mice. A cure could be closer than ever. And then it disappears. No follow-up, no treatment, no explanation. So what actually happens to all of this? This is Bonarixe. Here's what this video is going to answer. Why do almost none of these breakthroughs ever turn into something you can actually use? Let's find out. Here's the answer nobody puts in the headline. Roughly 9 out of every 10 drugs that succeed in animal testing go on to fail once they reach human trials. That number comes from multiple independent analyses, including data cited by US health regulators. This isn't a rare exception happening to unlucky research. It's the default outcome. So the real question isn't why did this one fail? It's why does almost every one of them fail? In roughly the same way. 3 reasons show up again and again. First, lab mice are almost nothing like the humans. A treatment is meant to help. They are bred to be extremely similar to one another, raised in sterile conditions, and usually young and healthy when tested. The opposite of a real patient who's older, more medically complicated, and nothing like their neighbor. Second, mice live 2 to 3 years. Humans live 80. Imagine trying to predict an entire 80-year human life from an experiment that lasted a few weeks. That's roughly the size of the leap being made every single time. Third, even when something does work, many trials are too small, too short, or measuring the wrong thing to prove it clearly. Put those 3 together and it worked in mice start to explain itself as almost a warning label, not a promise. But here's where it gets more interesting than just science is hard. Take a recent real example. Earlier this year, researchers found a way to reliably detect so-called zombie cells. Cells that stop dividing but refuse to die, quietly damaging the tissue around them as we age. It's a genuinely exciting discovery. It's also technically a mouse study.
So does that mean it's already headed for the same graveyard as every other exciting headline?
Not necessarily, and the reason why I say something important about how to read stories like this one in the future. Most of that 90% failure rate comes from a specific place. A treatment looked safe and effective in mice, then wasn't in humans. A biological mismatch discovered the hard way in a clinical trial. This particular discovery hasn't failed a human trial. It hasn't even reached one. It wasn't treatment at all. It was a way to finally see a target that had been invisible for over 20 years. That's an earlier and different stage of the process, with its own separate track record. What has to happen next? Here's what the scientists behind this discovery have actually said, and it's more honest than most coverage of stories like this. They've been direct that human cells aren't identical to the mouse cells they tested, and that real work remains before this could apply to a person at all. The next test isn't a clinical trial. It's whether the same method even works on human cells in a lab before anyone talks about treating a single patient. Separately, all the researchers in this field have pointed out that many past trials struggled specifically because doctors couldn't tell which patient actually had a high burden of these damaged cells to begin with. They've called for a more targeted approach, treating the right patients, not just anyone who volunteers. That's exactly the gap this new detection method is aimed at closing, not guaranteed to close it, aimed at it. So is this the one that finally beats the odds? Here's where most videos on topics like this stop telling you the truth. Nobody can promise that. History isn't on its side by default. Remember, roughly 90% of promising leads don't make it. And the broader field this belongs to has already produced more than 30 human trials, without a single approved drug. What's different here isn't the odds, it's the stage. This is trying to fix the part of the process that has been broken the longest before a new drug trial even begins. That's a meaningfully different bit than another compound that works in a mouse. Different bit, still a bit. And that reframes every one of those headlines you've scrolled past. Reversing aging isn't one breakthrough away from a finish line. It's a long chain of separate much smaller problems. And each one has to survive its own version of this 90% filter before it ever reaches a pharmacy shelf. Most of what excites people about anti-aging science right now is still somewhere early in that chain. That's not a reason to stop paying attention. It's a reason to ask a better question the next time a headline promises a breakthrough. Which stage is this actually at?
If a treatment like this eventually reached a real human trial, would you want to be one of the first people to try it, knowing the odds, or would you rather wait and watch what happens to everyone who goes first? Tell me which side you are on in the comments. This is exactly what this channel does. We take the science behind headlines like this and show you honestly where they actually stand. Not hype, not dismissal, just the real stage of the process. If that's useful to you, this is the channel for more of it. Next week, we're looking at the one aging intervention that's already made it all the way through that filter. Proven, repeated, and sitting quietly in almost every home. Completely ignored. See you there.